deal like that he's looking at and then decide to just kind of wait on it or slow play it or whatever. Dundon might push him a little bit more to, okay, we have this deal and it's a swing, take the swing, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. And I don't think Joe is necessarily against, being pushed to operate like that either. So I think from a personnel standpoint and a staff standpoint, I'm not coming in expecting there to be like big sweeping changes in the basketball ops department. I'm sure there are going to be some things that are streamlined in some ways, but I feel like I've thought the whole time that Joe was going to probably be okay, at least for the short term. And I still think that as of today, again, he could fire everybody tomorrow and I look like an idiot, but as of right now, I'm not expecting that to happen right now.
No, completely. Sam, you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, just lastly, can you just briefly tell you, I know you went to New York to talk to Adam Silver at the Board of Governors like a couple of days ago. So what was that like in terms of I know it was very Portland-centric that you can share with us?
Well, the Portland part of it, so obviously the two big the big things out of Board of Governors from a league standpoint for the press conference, one was obviously expansion, and they had the vote to agree to move forward with seeing what they can get as far as ownership groups and expansion fees for franchises in Seattle and Las Vegas, which I think everybody knew was coming for a long time. So that's going forward to the next step now. And then obviously there's all the tanking stuff. And by the way, that's one thing about Tom Dundon that I've learned is he is not down with tanking. His attitude is, this is an entertainment product and people pay money to go see it. So we have to put a competitive team on the floor. So that's his, I think if there's an NBA franchise, just as a little bit of an aside to go back to talking about the ownership stuff, I think Tom Dundon runs the Hurricanes a lot like the Indiana Pacers, where it's a small market team. They don't have the biggest budget, but they're super well run and they're pretty much competitive every year. They're in the playoffs every year. They make a couple of runs, but I think he's more interested in doing that and having a team that's competitive every year than he is tearing it down and spending multiple years intentionally losing games on purpose. So this tanking reform stuff that the NBA is doing is pretty good timing for the Blazers because they're very much out of that, that phase of what they're building. They're not really in the business of chasing lottery picks anymore. But, the tanking reform stuff was a big thing at Board of Governors. I guess this NBA Europe thing, I don't know who actually wants that, but that's clearly something that Silver cares a lot about for whatever reason, probably because of the amount of money that he's going to get from different investors in it. But yeah, I guess that's still a thing he's talking about for, whatever. But I would say those are the three big things that really got touched on at the press conference. And as far as the Portland stuff, and I give the league office and their PR staff, like Mike Bass, Mark Broussard, Tim Frank, Maureen Coyle, I give them a lot of credit for this because the two reporters from Portland that were there for the press conference were me and Joe Freeman of the Oregonian. And Joe asked a question, just kind of a general, what are your thoughts on Tom Dundon and the Blazers sale? And Adam gave kind of just a broad answer about how he likes him and he thinks he's going to be good for the franchise. And then after the press conference was over, like I said, the main topics of the press conference were more so, expansion and tanking and other stuff like that that's more nationally relevant. But after the press conference, Adam did a smaller little breakout session with some of the reporters from the Seattle and Vegas outlets that traveled there to talk more about the expansion stuff. And then the league PR walked him over to me and Joe Freeman and said, okay, here's the Portland guys. And they let us talk to him, just the two of us, for a few minutes. And he told us a little bit more about his thoughts on the sale and the arena situation. And he confirmed that even though he said last summer that the Blazers needed a new arena, that if they can get these renovations to Moda Center done, that's good from the league's end. He very much reiterated that the NBA is not interested in having the Blazers move from Portland, which I've never thought was a real possibility, but others have, I guess. And the other thing he said that I thought was interesting about this, and this ties into the expansion thing, is that he thinks it's going to be good for the league to have teams in both Seattle and Portland, not just from a rivalry standpoint, because there used to be a big Blazers Sonics rivalry back in the day. And there's rivalries between the two in other sports, like Oregon, Washington in college football, the WNBA. Now the WNBA is back in Portland. I think the Fire and the Seattle Storm are going to be a big rivalry, on the soccer teams, both the men's and the women's. There's that. So that's going to be good. But also just from a travel standpoint and a scheduling standpoint, right now, the Blazers, if you look at the those lists of like miles traveled per team on road trips, the Blazers are number one pretty much every year because right now they're just so isolated in the Pacific Northwest and there's nobody that's even close to them. There's no team that you can get to from Portland to play a road game without flying. So having a team 3 hours away by train in Seattle, like that's going to make things easier for the schedule makers. That's going to make it easier. So I think, Portland getting their arena stuff done is going to be not just good for the Blazers and the city of Portland, but it's going to be good for the NBA as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And like you said, the area around the arena, if they can develop it and make it an entertainment center, there's a lot of untapped potential there, especially if they put a TIF tax there where they can just make their money back off of the money that's being
that's above my pay grade. Yeah, but yeah.
Hey, either way, Sean, we really appreciate you for coming on here. Besides Rose Garden Report, which is going to be linked in the description, is there any other outlets or links or any other places you want people to check out your work?
That's really the main thing. And if you're interested in this stuff at all, I hate to do the thing where you're like asking people for money because everything costs money and everybody has a million subscriptions. But if you're at all interested in the Portland Trailblazers and want to support, an independent journalist that's, putting a lot of resources into traveling for this stuff and, and doing this kind of work, I would encourage people to sign up for a paid subscription because I feel like I've been doing a lot of stuff pretty in depth lately about the ownership change and about other things in the organization. And now that the WNBA season is starting, I'm going to be covering the Fire pretty regularly too. I was just at their expansion draft event yesterday where they did they finally have players now. So that's all coming up. And then also just to plug this too, I'm also the Trailblazers insider for Rip City Radio, which is the team's flagship radio station. I have a weekly show on there. I'm on their shows all the time. I do stuff on their social media platforms, which are at Rip City Radio 620. So that's kind of where you can find me.
Awesome. I'll definitely make sure to have that all linked in the description. Again, like I told you in person, Sean, I think you do one of the best coverages, especially from an independent outlet. And really for anybody who is aspiring to be a journalist or, it is hesitant about doing an independent coverage, I think you are I think what people should look at is the standard. Yeah. I was trying to think of the word. Thank you.
That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate that. I'm just kind of trying to make it all work. It's not easy, but I've kind of gotten it to a place where I'm actually able to make it work. And I realize that that's not everybody's situation. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, completely. And like I said, when we were talking in Los Angeles, I think you should keep growing this because you have a niche that other people don't.
That's the plan.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.